Welcome to Gray Eminence Media. All right, guys, I have a good one for you, so let's get into it.
Vivek Ramaswamy, thank you so much for coming on the show today. You and I both grew up as kids of Indian immigrants who love to debate, super confident.
And he's mad that he didn't reach the levels and heights of success that Vivek did, right? I think that's where, look, look at his face and look at Vivek's face. Who's more calm and relaxed? Bro, calm down. You're mad that you're both children of Indian immigrants, and Vivek was just more successful than you. And to be honest, there's no reason to be mad about that because there's been a lot of Indian children that have been more successful than Vivek, right? So why the scrunched up forehead and all the animosity? Calm down, my boy.
And perhaps overconfident in our views. But here's the difference. I kind of know my limits. You, on the other hand, having...
And see, that's the problem because you know your limits. You don't try to go above a certain limit that you set for yourself. And that's on you, man. Nobody told you to do that. You're not a victim of anything. That's you. And Vivek didn't put any limits on himself. So calm down, my boy. Calm down.
Having never held or even run for any elected office before, be it Congress or even school board, having not voted in 3 presidential elections in a row, suddenly now want to be president, go straight for the top job on planet Earth. Your critics would say that's the epitome of...
Oh, he mad. He mad. Yo, homeboy mad right now. I ain't gonna lie.
Tech bro arrogance. What is your response to
tech bro arrogance? This guy reeks of just jealousy and insecurity. Listen, my man. You guys are both Indian, but you guys are different. You're individual human beings at the end of the day. So I don't understand. Maybe his handlers or people at the top of MSNBC told him to go hard on Vivek. Because if you actually probably look up his salary, Mehdi, I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but the host, I'm sure if you Google his net worth, it's far above the average human being and far above average the American citizen. So, people should be thankful for what they have. And I think this is a very good example of someone that has a lot, the host of the show, right? That is financially secure. And he's mad that somebody else has made a name for himself, number one, and has more money. Sad.
To them. I get that you're an outsider. Personally, I like outsiders. Yeah. But what have you done that even qualifies you to be president of the United States?
So look, Mehdi, I have been taking on bureaucracies my entire life. I took on the bureaucracy of big pharma starting in my late 20s at a time when I think pharma was corrupt and going in a lot of directions that they shouldn't have been. I actually built a multi-billion-dollar business developing medicine.
And by the way, this isn't between 2 children of Indian immigrants. See, this is where the host of MSNBC actually tries to manipulate your vision of this interview. This is an American called Vivek Ramaswamy versus a British person. And his name is Mehdi, I suppose, right? So this is a conversation between an American and a Brit. But you see, he doesn't see it that way. He has this lens of race and that we're both children of immigrants or, Indian immigrants. And that is such low level base thinking. And I assume that the host of the show is educated. So for you to just go off of base instincts and you're not even operating in 2023 when you could look like Vivek and look like yourself, but yet are different people completely, because Americans and Brits are very much different. And this is the problem. So I don't know. I don't think the host is going to succeed in trying to create a bad image of Vivek, but let's go ahead and see.
that pharma had abandoned. I took on the ESG bureaucracy, competing with firms like BlackRock, State Street, and Vanguard to build a successful firm called Strive. Yes, none of that is in government, but it is in the private sector. It involves taking on bureaucracies.
Okay.
And that exactly is my mission here, is taking on the biggest bureaucracy of all, that in the federal government in Washington, D.C. And the other thing I'll add to that, Mehdi, is it's not just the outsider pitch. I think we do need an outsider. I think it's good to have a business background. But I'm also an outsider who deeply understands the law and the Constitution in this country. And I think that's the unique combination that actually makes this my calling. And I hope that we're going to be successful in reviving this country.
So
he's a trained Yale school lawyer. So
talk about your business background. Let's talk about that. You made your name and made a lot of your early big money from pushing an Alzheimer's drug that had already failed 4 clinical trials when you bought it. You then talked it up on CNBC and Forbes on the cover. Your company's subsidiary shot up by billions in value when it went public in 2015. But then the drug failed its phase 3 trial on your watch. The company lost 75% of its value in a single day. Ordinary investors like the California State Teachers Pension Fund lost hundreds of thousands of dollars. But you cashed out beforehand via your parent company to the tune of, I believe, over $37 million. Your critics say it's a classic pump and dump scheme. What do you say to them?
Yeah, Mehdi, that's the standard opposition research during politics reading line. Anybody in the biotech industry knows this story very well. 99.7% of Alzheimer's drugs have failed. That's thousands of drugs.
Ooh.
Mine was one of them. But the company
And do you notice there's no intervention from the host? There's no immediate pushback. And typically, it doesn't matter the network, whether it's MSNBC or anything else. If a host detects an outright lie that the guest is making, they will have immediate pushback on what they're saying. What does Mehdi do? He doesn't say anything because it's true.
I founded Roivant developed a range of medicines. And the way I made my money was not through the failure of that Alzheimer's drug. This is one of the pieces of misinformation from opposition research. I could have sold shares in that subsidiary Alzheimer's company, but didn't. So the person who was hurt by that was me.
Hold on.
But
you say this a lot, but you did sell shares in Roivant and you made $37 million.
And Mehdi,
$37 million.
Mehdi, I think you owe it to your audience. Mehdi, I think you owe it to your audience to be accurate. That is shares in a different company, not Axovant. And those shares that I sold are worth, and those shares are worth dramatically more today. So I would have made more money had I held on to those shares. So don't believe what the opposition research purveys through the media.
It's not opposition research. We looked at your tax returns, which you very kindly have released.
Yeah, exactly.
And
which I voluntarily released because I want to be transparent.
You made $300 grand in 2014 on capital gains. In 2015, after the IPO of this Axovant, you made $37 million.
Okay, what's wrong with that? Did he break a law? Did he murder somebody? Did he commit the R word? Okay, he made a lot of money. Mehdi, if we Google you've made a lot of money, more than the average person. What are you talking about? So your argument is that Vivek Ramaswamy, a Indian American Republican candidate for president, made a lot of money legally, and that is your that's your attack. Wow, that's pathetic, man. That's sad.
In capital gains, yet others didn't make
after
that kind
Roivant,
of money.
After Mehdi, give me a break. After Roivant, the multi-billion-dollar business that developed 40+ medicines, yes, I sold shares in that, and that business, if I may actually allow you to know how I made my money, developed 5 FDA-approved therapies that are now FDA-approved today.
After you sold
one
the
of them
companies.
is a life-saving therapy.
After you sold the companies, it was FDA approved. Again, what law did he break? And doesn't matter if it was before or after, it was FDA approved anyway. When you go and buy something at the grocery store or at, your pharmacy, it's FDA approved. This guy is just ridiculous. Honestly, he's so insecure. It's crazy.
Approved when you were CEO, were they?
They were FDA. Actually, over the time that I developed them, we took them all the way through phase 3, and then we did a $3 billion deal that actually
were approved a year and a half later after you sold the company.
Yeah, so Mehdi, I'm not going to fault you for not knowing the first thing about biotech because that's not your job. But getting through phase 3 is the final stage of clinical testing before you head in the application. Yes, my company did a $3 billion deal that actually did make money for those shareholders.
Nothing to say. Nothing to say.
And so, yes, I have built Roivant's a publicly traded company, nearly $10 billion public company today that I built as the sole founder from scratch, as one of several companies that I've built. So, yes.
And he's not refuting anything. And now he's going to move the ball post. Watch. He's going to move the question.
I have a business record that I'm proud of and will equip me to lead this country.
You mentioned stage 3 trials. The Alzheimer's drug failed it after you did a lot of touting of it. You say 99.7% failed. You never said that at the time. Do you have any regrets about how you hyped that drug?
I did say that.
CEO of Roivant said this week that you hyped the drug. Do you regret hyping it?
Okay, as a business owner, you hype anything that you're selling. The host... Listen, if the executives of MSNBC told Mehdi to hype up his show, regardless of if it's true or not, right? Whatever the hype points are, whatever the hype aspects are, he's going to go ahead and hype up his show. That's with rappers, singers, business owners, athletes. They're going to hype up themselves. So once again, his argument is falling flat on its face.
We did not hype the drug. To the contrary, actually, one of the things that I found
this week.
Well, I can't speak for what is or is. I haven't read any article.
He already sold his company. There's a new CEO, and he sold his company. There's a new CEO at his former company that he owned. How would he be in the loop of what the current CEO of his former company is thinking? The former CEO could have a vendetta against Vivek. We don't know the relationship between the two. This and look at his face. It's like, oh well, sorry, Vivek. My bosses told me to go ahead and grill you. You know, I don't really mean this.
That you're quoting, so I don't exactly know what you're referring to. The fact of the matter is, though, I
don't know what you're referring to. He could have easily interjected and said X, Y, and Z. This is what I'm referring to. But he didn't because he's getting that money. He's not poor. Come on.
Transparent at every step of the way. Everyone who is in the biotech industry knows that Alzheimer's disease is the graveyard for medicines. But I still think it's an important area of need. And I'll say this, Mehdi, is, you know what? If I serve for 2 terms, I'm still going to be in my 40s when I leave the White House. It is a personal passion of mine to come back and see if Alzheimer's disease hasn't been cured. I do want to play a role in still delivering treatments and cures for that disease. And people who don't take risks, don't achieve meaningful impact, the medicines that I did develop, I'm proud of. And you don't get there without having a number of medicines that you test along the way. And the other thing I will say is our success rate under my watch was higher than probably nearly 99.9% of biotech startups in the last decade. So yeah, I stand by that record. I'm not afraid of taking risks. That's part of the American spirit.
Well, technically, the successes were a year and a half after you sold the company, but we'll get bogged down. Let's talk politics.
Mehdi, that's dead wrong. And I would sorry to say you're embarrassing yourself in front of anybody who knows anything about biotech for knowing that phase 3 trials are the final stage. Okay. The final stage, the FDA phase 3 studies succeeded. So you're barking up the wrong tree, but we can continue to move on.
Let's talk politics. Let's talk politics. We do. We want to talk lots of stuff.
Sure.
Yeah, now he wants to talk politics. Has no understanding.
Your critics say of fantasy politics, of magical thinking. They say you propose stuff that can't be done. For example, you said on Meet the Press the other week that if you had been in Mike Pence's place on January the 6th, you would have insisted on first passing a bill that night to bring in single-day voting on Election Day.
That's inaccurate.
Government issued
I never
ID.
said that night. I never said that night.
What you would have done on January the 6th, and you said I would have done this. And
I said what I would have done differently is that I was precise about the period between, and this is still ambitious, I will admit, but at least let's get my view correct. It is ambitious. Between November 4th and January 6th, I think it was an opportunity for heroism.
Just to be clear, you never said anything about
said it every step.
Let's play the clip, guys. Do we have the clip?
I've said this in countless forums.
Have a listen to the clip.
On your Chuck Todd splice script, in all of my written statements and everything I've said.
Hold on, we're playing the clip right now.
In that period between the election, here's what I would have said. We need single day voting on election day. We need paper ballots, and we need government-issued ID matching the voter file. And if we achieve that, then we have achieved victory, and we should not have any further complaint about election integrity.
So what would you have done
it through the Senate?
So what would you have done with Mike Pence? You would have not certified the election?
So in my capacity as president of the Senate, I would have led through that level of reform. Then on that condition, certified the election results, served it up to the president. President Trump then to sign that into law. And on January 7th, declared the re-election campaign pursuant to a free and fair election.
Vivek, not only do you not mention anything about November, but let's say you did do November. That joint session was not a legislative session.
Ambitious.
The vice president doesn't have the power to introduce legislation. Neither party would have backed such a bill.
Oh, come on,
it couldn't have been passed in a day.
You're just saying the matter is
naive stuff. The president,
the president and vice president absolutely drive legislation through Congress. That is exactly how
but
things
Trump
work.
wasn't doing legislation.
Now,
he was busy pushing the big lie, as you pointed out yourself in your book.
Well,
Trump wasn't doing legislation. So you didn't even counter the prior point when Vivek does say that, no, the president and vice president drives, not create, drives legislation. And he had no pushback. And he said, oh, well, Trump didn't drive, blah, blah, blah. Clown.
So he wasn't
and
there.
I wasn't
Mike
the vice
Pence
president of the United States.
Passed a bill, but
and I was not the vice president of the United States.
Mike Pence.
You guys in the media, you guys in the MSNBC crack me up to sort of create a hypothetical situation to say, if you had been vice president, what would you have been doing? I'm telling you exactly what I've been doing, but you're saying, but that's not what Donald Trump was doing. This is
Mike
a joke.
Pence asked you,
Let's actually have a substantive conversation. Do you want to have a substantive conversation about what should have happened? Or do you want to play a game of gotcha? Because you have the choice. The choice is yours. Do you actually want to have a substantive conversation? If you do, I'm down to do it. Do you want a substantive conversation? What we need.
You said substantive full time.
Actually, if you want to get a word in, you know, if you're going to speak the truth and ask a legitimate question, have at it.
I think it is a legitimate question. Multiple people wondered about your knowledge of how Congress works, suggesting Mike Pence, by the way, on the debate stage, asked you if you would have supported what he did. It's not an MSNBC question. It's a Republican vice president question.
Yes.
So fine, you don't want to answer
it.
And
what I'm saying is it was a missed opportunity for heroism, not in one day, but I think that in a period of 2 months. And I think you're a smart guy.
You understand this. There's an
American
You're
confidence.
A smart guy. You know it couldn't have been done in 2 months.
I think under extraordinary circumstances, in extraordinary times, we have an American Confidence in Elections Act. It's literally making its way through Congress now. ACE. I support it. I think if we had gotten that done during that window, further we said single-day voting on election day as a national holiday.
And Mitch McConnell wouldn't have agreed to a national holiday.
I think Democrats should agree to it.
We can argue forever.
I think Democrats should agree to it.
That's a different argument.
That's what I stand for. I think we're still going to get that done when I'm the president.
Okay.
When I'm the president, not in some fantasy land where I was vice president in some other year in the historical history.
Let's talk about you as president.
What I'm running for is what we're going to do.
Let me ask a question so we don't run out of time. Please don't filibuster. I just want to ask a question about when you're president, you say you said this is your words, quote, if you want to stay out of no-win wars and make America stronger at home, I know how to get that done. Genuine question, Vivek, not a gotcha. How? How do you know how to get that done? With respect, you've literally never done anything like that in your life. I could go out on the street outside the studio, grab someone. They have as much experience as you do of keeping us out of foreign wars. That's not an insult. That's just a statement of fact.
No, it's not an insult. It's a fact, right? And it is also a fact that everybody else who does have experience in the foreign policy establishment has been sending us into no-win wars for a long time. Both of those are facts. Here's how I would do it. Let's get specific, and I'm glad we finally gotten to the doorstep of actually discussing a policy agenda. Here's what
pushback.
I would do. Pull Russia apart in its military alliance with China. Those two countries are in a military treaty dating back to 2001. That is the single greatest threat that the United States faces. So I would end the Ukraine war on terms that, yes, allow Ukraine to at least come out with its sovereignty intact, which may not even be the track they're on right now. But in return, and also make a commitment that NATO will not admit Ukraine to NATO. In conjunction, and by the way, for people in the foreign policy establishment, they forgot that Gorbachev was made that promise by James Baker in the United States in 1990. So keep our word there. But in return, actually make a hard requirement that Vladimir Putin exit his military alliance with China
you say this many
and remove
times.
his Russian military presence.
Then why ask the question?
That's the deal that I would do.
Again, the fantasy land is why would Putin just agree with you? Why? Because you asked nicely, Putin will hold his word. He'll pocket your concessions and not just carry on dealing with his biggest trading partner, China.
Well, here's the thing. I actually think that China shouldn't be his biggest trading partner. I think it's a mistake that we've closed off economic relations with Russia. I would lead both the United States and the West to reopen economic relations with Russia because Putin does not enjoy being Xi Jinping's little brother.
What's wrong?
What's
wrong, Mehdi?
He's done. He's actually sent weapons to both India and Vietnam right after the February 2022 meeting he had with Xi Jinping. There are cracks in that armor, but we need to actually open our eyes to see the opportunity staring us in the face.
We will have to agree to disagree whether we think that you can persuade Vladimir Putin to drop his alliance with Xi Jinping. You have made truth the centerpiece of your campaign. So let's talk about your trustworthiness.
Yes.
For example, when CNN quoted you talking to The Atlantic about 9/11 and federal agents possibly being on the planes, you said the quote is wrong, actually. But the quote wasn't wrong. The Atlantic released the audio of what you saying exactly what they said you said. Let me finish the question.
Let me be crystal clear.
Let me finish the question.
The Atlantic released the whole tape. They refused to do it. Yeah.
You said on Twitter Spaces last month that no, you had never supported Bernie Sanders' mask fraud legislation, but you literally put out a tweet in July of 2020 calling it a sensible idea. You also said not once but twice in June and July that the first time you'd ever voted was in 2020 for Trump, but in fact the first time you voted for president was in 2004 for a pro-choice libertarian candidate. How can people believe what you say?
So, Mehdi, let me just go through one by one. The Atlantic, yes, purposefully spliced an out-of-context quote where we have challenged them. They released the tapes. We asked them for the tapes first. They didn't give them to us. They waited then to splice them and release them publicly. I challenged The Atlantic to release that entire conversation. And what was a conversation of how many federal agents were in the field.
You said was wrong. We all heard it. We can play it if you like.
No,
it is exactly word for word what she quoted to you. You said they put words in your mouth.
Look, if you want... If you want hard facts, here are hard facts. That day, The Atlantic printed it. I said, that looks like something that never captured the character of our conversation. Can you ask Atlantic for the tapes? They said they would refuse to release the recording to us. So when Caitlin asked me about it, I said, that does not.
And that should tell you something. Atlantic refused to release the tapes to Vivek. Yes, did they release the tapes? Yes, they did. But if they're not willing to release the tapes to Vivek, then what does that say about the tapes in terms of splicing it, editing the clips? Because you can edit audio clips easily. I mean, we've been editing audio clips for a very long time. So how does that make any sense for if they were telling the truth, The Atlantic, they would just go ahead and release the tapes to Vivek, right?
It all sound like the context of what I said. And then, it turns out The Atlantic releases a very...
Everybody actually, you're putting words in my mouth.
It functionally sends the wrong message, Teddy.
Oh, functionally. Okay. You could have said it's out of context. You said
it was so badly taken out of context that it misled their audience. It was so badly taken out of context. It was basically a lie and it misled their audience. But ask The Atlantic to release it. So my view here is, here's what I've learned. The media distortion filters. Mehdi, if they are going to cut something before and after without the question of what the guy is that came beforehand, come on, why wouldn't The Atlantic? Why are they so reluctant to release the whole recording?
Maybe
ask
because the audio they released, you're still denying you said what's on the audio. Okay, let's ask you this question. Is Donald Trump,
it's a joke that the media is going to selectively edit this, and this is the way this game is played. Politics is dirty. That's okay. I'm ready for it.
Just to be clear, is Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century?
Of the 21st century. Yes,
let me ask my question. Let me finish the question. Is Donald Trump, as you say now, the best president of the 21st century, who you say you want as an advisor and a mentor if you become president? Or is Trump, as you've said in the past, in your books, on Twitter, a, quote, sore loser who is a, quote, danger to democracy and who did, quote, downright abhorrent and egregious things on January the 6th? Which one is he, Vivek?
So to be crystal clear, between George Bush, Barack Obama, Joe Biden, and Donald Trump, those are the presidents of the 21st century. Donald Trump is unambiguously, as judged by the results, the best president of the 21st century. Kept us out of wars, grew the economy. I give him full credit for that. I want to build on that foundation and take this country to the next level.
But you've also called him a when you didn't need it.
your time on childish details in
Go on.
October of
Details
that year when
matter
I
to me.
applied for that
Go on.
scholarship. And it was, well, guess what? The bonuses that a hedge fund pays, and it's a shame that, again, you don't have to be an expert on this, but if you're going to spout out, you better know something about it. People pay at a hedge fund the bonuses at the end of a year. And on December 31st, that's when I was paid. I applied for the scholarship that September, and I did not grow up in a wealthy family.
Vivek, you made more money the previous year.
I made $200,000 pre-tax or whatever it was.
No, you didn't.
And
no,
you know
didn't.
what?
Hold on. No, you didn't. You're now telling flat. In 2009,
you have my tax returns in front of you. I don't remember what I made in 2009.
In 2009, you made $650,000. In 2010, you made less, $450,000. So the argument that you only made the money pre the scholarship, Oh, so now we're bringing tax into it. We've been using gross numbers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Vivek, you're wrong on this. Go back and check your tax returns. You made
$50,000 makes a big difference.
And then you accepted a Soros scholarship for $50,000.
Why are they talking about money? They're both rich. They're both rich. The only difference is that Vivek is richer than him, and he's mad about it. What does this have to do with Vivek's vision for the United States? Joe Biden, the Biden family is also very rich. I mean, this is a smear campaign.
$50,000 when you didn't need it.
Well, you know what the fact is, Mehdi, is $50,000 did make a big difference to me back then. And anybody who has a few $100,000 in the bank is going to take $50,000 without strings attached. Take the scholarship. But my question for you is, why on earth are you, as an intelligent person interested in politics, obsessing over a 24-year-old $50,000 scholarship?
I'm interested in
truth, beneath you.
We have a country to fix. That you wear. And I'm interested in truth.
And Mehdi, that's why I released 20. Mehdi, that is why I released 20 years of tax records. Tell your friends in the Biden administration to do the same thing. Tell your Democrat candidates to do the same thing.
Oh, now he wants to change the subject.
I think it is pathetic. I just think it is sad and pathetic that that we have important issues to talk about for the future of a country.
Absolutely.
And you're talking about a $50,000 scholarship in 2010 to go to Yale Law School when I was 24.
If you just owned it,
this is pathetic, and is why nobody trusts you guys.
It is pathetic in your view, but you paid a Wikipedia editor who then removed it. So clearly it's something you didn't want people to read about. Last question, because we've gone over time and I respect you.
Who also said I was born in India. Who also said I was born in India and misspelled and got my wife's name wrong. So yes, we actually need to correct facts when people are playing this game.
Last question. You want me to ask a substantive question? Here's what I worry about most: democracy in this country.
I would love
not just
questions.
Under Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Last question for you: not just under Donald Trump, but under you. People are worried about authoritarianism. You have preemptively promised to pardon Trump no matter what juries of his peers decide, as well as today extending those pardons to January 6 rioters. You've dismissed white supremacists as boogeymen and unicorns. You want to fire at least half the federal government workforce. That's over 1 million people. You want to remove the right to vote from 18 to 25-year-olds. That's over 30 million people. You want to get rid of birthright citizenship. In fact, you refer to voting and citizenship as privileges when they are, in my view and in the Constitution view, rights. It's a very anti-democratic worldview. What do you say to people who criticize you for that?
I don't think it's an anti-democratic worldview. I favor reviving the lifeblood of our constitutional republic. Revive actual free speech and open debate in this country. Revive civic duty in this country, something that our founding fathers envisioned. Revive true equality in front of the law, where people aren't prosecuted because of the color of their skin or because of the content of their political views. One standard of the rule of law.
I mean, I have to say this against Vivek. You can't revive something that wasn't there. I mean, when you're talking about the color of skin, there's nothing to revive in terms of not judging from the color of skin or something like that. That's a little bit off.
For everybody. I stand for the founding vision of the country, where the people who we elect to run the government ought to be the ones who actually run the government, when in fact most policymaking functions in DC are performed by federal bureaucrats. So yes, my standard is, would Alexander Hamilton and John James and Thomas...
Yeah, policy functions in terms of functions and not visions and executive action. Functioning bureaucracies are done by federal workers, or the deep state, as they would like to call it. So that doesn't make any sense, Vivek.
Jefferson and George Washington, would they be proud of what they see today, or would they be appalled? I think if they walked around and saw Washington, D.C. today, they would be appalled. By the time I leave office in January 2033, after 2 terms, they will once again be proud of what we've created: a government with 3 co-equal branches, not 4, shutting down that administrative state, reviving civic duty and reviving one standard of the rule of law for all Americans. And that is not a Democratic vision or a Republican vision. That is a pro-American vision that I think can actually reunite this country, which is what I believe I will uniquely be able to deliver as the next president.
Vivek Ramaswamy, we will have to leave it there. Appreciate you coming on the show, taking my...
All right, guys. That was a really interesting conversation. Let me know what you think in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Peace.